On this episode of the Preferable Podcast, Season 3, Episode 23, Self-Care, the founder of Caregivers Haven, Miss Sandra Boyd, will share tips with us on how we can take our self-care to the next level so that we can take our fragments and put them in the right position to not only help others, but help ourselves. All this and more on this episode of the Preferable Podcast. I am Jayden Watkins, your host and executive producer.
Thank you for tuning in to the Preferable Podcast. I am Jayden Watkins, the host and executive producer of this podcast. This is Season 3, Episode 23, Self-Care. If you are listening to this episode on YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Audible, iHeartRadio, or any other major podcasting platform, please make sure that you subscribe and share this episode so that we can bless as many people as possible through the words that will be shared in this episode. The definition of self-care is the act of attending to one's physical or mental health, generally without medical or other professional consultation. When we manage self-care, we can perform tasks successfully and be empowered. It can be easy to become overwhelmed with the cares of life and the responsibilities that come our way. Sometimes we give 100% to others and not always enough to ourselves. We must take care of ourselves so that we can take care of others. We are too gifted and too useful to have mental breakdowns or other health challenges due to us being overwhelmed. Young or old, we all must take care of our mental health. Self-care is something that is often devalued, but is crucial to living life on purpose. Self-care is so much more than a beauty regimen or an external thing you do. It has to start within your heart to know what you need to navigate your life. A pedicure doesn't last, but meditating every day does. That is a quote by Miss CaRE and Moss. My guest on today, Miss Sandra Boyd, is an advocate for self-care among caregivers. Miss Sandra Boyd is the founder of Caregivers Haven. She has devoted most of her adult life to helping those challenged with the responsibility of providing care for those with a brain illness diagnosis. Miss Sandra has worked as a registered nurse for over 40 years. However, she's been a caregiver since 10 years old when her mother suffered a traumatic brain injury. As a result, she shares her lived experiences by providing education, resources, support, and coaching for other family caregivers who are stressed, scared, exhausted, and don't know where to go for help. Her goal is to empower family caregivers to care for their loved ones and utilize self-care strategies. She helps them to take care of themselves so that they can take better care of those that they love. Miss Sandra Boyd is joining us at this time. Hi, Miss Sandra. How are you doing?
I'm great. How are you? I'm blessed to be here. I appreciate you inviting me.
Thank you so much for accepting the invitation, and I am doing well. Now, when we think about the pandemic, it lasted for too long. Are we even technically in the pandemic is the question, but many of us are still healing from experiences that occurred during the pandemic. What are some challenges that you experienced in the pandemic, and how did you triumph over those challenges?
Wow. You may not know it, but that's a really deep question. I'll have to try to not get emotional. So during the pandemic, at the beginning of the pandemic, when it first started, March 2020, my family and I had gone to Vegas to a college basketball game. And we came home and we all had COVID. We didn't know it at the time, but my husband was getting sicker and sicker. And long story short, he ended up in the hospital in a coma, intubated, and they told me he wasn't going to make it. A week after he went in, my son also went in. So they were both in the hospital at the same time. And I remember I said it's March 2020. So it's the beginning of the pandemic. The doctor literally called me the day that he went to the ICU and said, we don't know what to do. We're just getting updates from China for what they're trying. And I was like, what? You have got to be kidding me. And as a nurse, when a doctor says we don't know what to do, that's a very scary thing. And so that was us at the beginning of the pandemic. Well, a week prior to us going to Vegas, I had been taken off work because I was having major back spasms, and my doctor really wanted to take me off work. And I kept saying, no, I can do it. But I had a really bad episode at work one day, and she goes, oh, that's it. I'm taking you off for a month. So I was off work when this happened, and then they were in the hospital. I also had COVID. I just didn't have it as bad as they did, so I wasn't hospitalized. But it was just a very, very scary thing, very, very scary. And so I ended up, because of my back and because of all the things going on with my husband and my son, thank God they both made it home, but I retired. So the beginning of the pandemic, we were sick, we had ICU things going on, and then I retired all at the same time. So there was a lot going on. And so you asked, what did I do to get through it? And I'm going to tell you, it was prayer. It was prayer. I had several threads on my phone of people that I would text every day and give them an update, and they were praying for us. And that's what got me through that whole time, was prayer.
Prayer works, and prayer changes things. Yes, indeed. It's a Bible verse. It's not coming to mind exactly where it is from, but I'm going to paraphrase. It says, if my people, which are called by my name, shall humble themselves and pray and seek my face and turn from their wicked ways, I will hear from heaven and heal their land. Speaking of healing the land, can you please tell us what inspired you to start Caregivers Haven and the purpose of it, which some say it is to help heal the land?
Right. So I started Caregivers Haven because I am a caregiver. In addition to, being a nurse and taking care of my mom over the years, I also take care of a family member who has a serious mental illness. And I started going to support group with other families, and I just saw these people. They were just so frustrated and scared and not really knowing where to turn. And I just, I would just stand up and hug them so tight. I just wanted to help them. And what I found was they just didn't know what to do. And trying to take care of someone with mental illness is very tricky. It's not easy. And so I felt like I just kept feeling like I wanted to help them. And I am a nurse, so I know how to maneuver through the health system. I knew people that I could call to get help, and a lot of these family members did not. And so I just wanted to start a support group, a business, something to where I could kind of help them, help guide them, help empower them to be able to take care of their loved ones and try to figure this whole mental health system, help it figure it out. And that's where that came from. That's where my passion was there to help these people.
Wow, that is awesome and amazing. Can you please tell us what inspired you to become a nurse in the first place?
I don't know. My mom told me from a little girl, I always wanted to help people. I was just always the helper. And then she said, I just started saying I want to be a nurse. And I hadn't visited a hospital. I didn't know anyone else who was a nurse. It was just in me, I guess.
Okay. When people think about the challenges that nurses face, they sometimes say, "Oh, I cannot do that. I don't want to take care of others." They don't say, "I don't want to take care of others." They may say something such as, "I don't want to take care of others in that way, form, or fashion." Can you please tell us what gave you the momentum each and every day to wake up almost every day for over 40 years to take care of someone else?
I personally feel like it has to be in you because, yes, going to work, seeing a whole lot of blood, a whole lot of poop. Hopefully that doesn't offend anyone, but going to work, doing that, like literally being in someone else's personal space, giving them a bath, just all the things we do. In addition to just the stress, I was, most of my career was spent as a neonatal ICU nurse. So taking care of premature babies, sometimes seeing them pass away. That's not something that you can do every day if it's not in you. And I just feel like to be a nurse, it has to be in you. And there are a lot of people who become nurses who stop and choose another career path because it's not in it for them. It's not an easy job at all. And I've done over the years I've been a nurse, I've worked in several different areas of nursing. I did most of my career in neonatal ICU. I did pediatric ICU. I did home care. I was a legal nurse consultant. And then the end of my career, I was working as an informatics nurse. And I thought that was going to be like a little less stressful than my job I had been doing for 30 years, but it was just as stressful. And an informatics nurse is a nurse. You know how all the hospitals and doctors are on a electronic medical record now. So we like helped build the background of those systems. We taught at our hospital, we had like 10,000 staff. We had to teach them how to use it. But that was stressful too, because, if something happened and the computer system crashed, our team had to go in along with the IT team and help the nurses and help the doctors, figure it out, get paper for them to use. And so in addition to it not being easy, it's also very stressful. So you have to love what you're doing. And I love being a nurse. I still love being a nurse after all these years. As a neonatal nurse, I tell people all the time, we would have to go to the back to labor and delivery where women were delivering babies. And I said, after all these years, I still every time the baby pops out, I'm like, it's such a miracle. And people are like, you've been doing this so long. But I love it. I love it. And I feel like you have to love what you're doing to be a nurse.
You have to love what you're doing to do anything. And definitely when you're working with someone's health or taking care of someone such as a nurse or a doctor in a hospital. Speaking from your experience with being a nurse, how can caregivers decrease stress as they help their loved ones deal with whatever disorder or disease that they have?
I would say the first thing is to get educated. Educate yourself on whatever the disease process your loved one has. That's going to help you along just to know what you're dealing with. Educate. Also find your resources, and you can use the doctor, the nurses, the case managers, social workers, people like that can find resources for you, can point you in the right direction. So education, resources, and then support. Do not try to do this by yourself. It's not going to be easy. And a lot of people try to do this alone, or they may feel embarrassed to ask for help, or they really might live in an area where there's no family, but there's help out there. You can reach out to support groups. You can reach out to churches, neighbors, whoever you have to. Ask for help. Don't try to be, macho and like, I don't need nobody. Don't be like that, because it's very, very difficult. And I would say the second thing is to follow what I call the basics of self-care. And that's nutrition, exercise, sleep, mindfulness practice, and a spirituality practice. A lot of times we talk about self-care, and I think you mentioned this as far as, getting a massage or getting our nails done. And, I've said this on many podcasts, but that's not going to keep you alive. You need to do the things that are going to keep you alive, set a good foundation, and that's nutrition, sleep, exercise, mindfulness practice, and support. There's a poem that I always quote that says, self-care is not about self-indulgence, it's about self-preservation. And preservation means to prevent from decaying, to prevent from dying. So if you listen to that, that's really deep, because it's telling you self-care is not about indulgence, doing all these fun things. It's about staying alive. It's about doing things that's going to keep you going. And so a massage is going to make me feel good right now, or manicure or pedicure will help me feel good right now. But if you want to preserve yourself, if you want to stay alive, if you want to continue to be here to take care of your loved one, then you need to set that foundation with those 5 basics of self-care, which is nutrition, sleep, exercise, a mindfulness practice, and a spirituality practice. So those are the main things that I would say for someone who's a caregiver, or just all of us, everybody needs to do that, in this day and age. It's good practice to do that.
Yes, they are good practices if you're trying to take better care of your mental health. Why is it so important for caregivers and every human being to take care of their health?
So that we can function better. We've all seen that Snickers commercial where I think the person's hungry and they turn into some mean person. We don't do well when we're hungry or when we're sleepy or when we're exhausted. And so just making better decisions in this thing that we call life is why we need to take care of our mental health. And also, as when we talk about mental health, you want to keep going to keep your mental health healthy, because if you don't, it can go the other way and it can become a mental illness. And a lot of people, they don't think about that. A lot of times you say, "Oh, girl, I'm so stressed out," or "Oh, I'm just." People use that word "stressed out" a lot, but what they don't understand is chronic stress, chronic busyness, it can lead to a mental illness. You can get severe anxiety. You can get depression. It can turn into other things. And so we want to keep our mental health healthy because it can transition into a mental illness.
We are going to take a short commercial break, but please stay locked in as we continue our discussion with the one and only Miss Sandra Boyd. Tell someone that you are listening to the Preferable Podcast.
I believe that my purpose in life is to inspire others to live according to the reason why they were created and motivate them to activate their God-given gifts to maximize their potential. To book myself, Jayden Watkins, to speak at events such as conferences, community engagements, schools, camps, or to preach at your church or youth revival, email iamjaydenwatkins@gmail.com or visit jaydenwatkins.com and fill out the booking form. I look forward to your invitation. Thank you for your support.
Miss Sandra Boyd, what are some practical tools? I know you shared with us some of them before that you would like to share to empower not only caregivers, but those who take care of others more than they take care of themselves.
I would say the first thing is to put your name on the list first. We all have a to-do list, whether it's in our head or if it's written down. And I actually learned this probably 3 years ago from one of our podcast guests. And that's the biggest thing, is to put your name on the list first, because if you think about if you're a caregiver, if you think about how much you love the person that you take care of, look at how much time and energy you're putting into taking care of them. If you put that same love and that same energy into yourself, it's going to empower you to continue to take care of them. It's going to empower you to be energized to take care of them. So many times it'd be like 4:00 in the afternoon. I'm like, did I eat today? Or did I drink something? So for a while, until I got used to this, I literally, on my to-do list, I would literally put 9:00, feed Sandra, because we forget. And so it's really important to just get your mindset that you're not being selfish. You're not being self-indulgent by taking care of yourself. Make sure you're taking your meds. Make sure you're making your own doctor appointments. Make sure you're feeding yourselves. So that's the first thing I would say, is to put your name on the list first. And then, and I wrote these down because I wanted to make sure that I'm not forgetting anything. I want you to also don't be afraid to ask for help. And we talked about that a little bit earlier. You're not alone. And again, it could be a family member, it could be a neighbor. So putting your name on the list first, and don't be afraid to ask for help. I actually I'm a nurse coach, so I actually hired a nurse coach myself, because sometimes we're in the mindset that I already know that, I already know how to do that. But if you already know how to do it, but you're not doing it, then you need help, and you can't be afraid to ask for help. You can't say, "Oh, I'm a pastor, I don't need help." But I remember a pastor saying, a pastor also needs a pastor. And I'm a coach. I also need a coach. And caregivers also need help. We go through, our ego gets in the way and it makes us think, I don't need nobody. But no, we all need help. So that's the second thing I would say. And the third thing is to slow down. Our world is so busy right now. And I don't think a lot of people understand the physiological thing that happens when you're just busy like that all the time. Our body is really smart. Like it always tries to maintain homeostasis. It always tries to maintain balance. And so when we're busy all the time, we're staying in this sympathetic state. Our sympathetic nervous system is just revved up. And so when it's revved up, because back in the day, we needed to run from a lion, right? You've heard of the fight or flight. So when we're in that state all the time, it's not good, because then it doesn't allow our parasympathetic nervous system to calm us down, to slow us down. And so what happens when you're in this state, it may take weeks, months, it may take years, but eventually something's not going to work. You're like me, my back went out. You may get some anxiety. You might get some stomach ulcers. Eventually something's going to happen if you stay in that state too long and not allow your parasympathetic nervous system to bring you back into balance. And then the other thing I would say is to learn some mindfulness practices, some breathing exercises. A lot of times people think, oh, that's just like foo-foo, it doesn't work. But it does, because just like I talked about the parasympathetic nervous system, when you start doing some slow breathing or some box breathing or meditation, that's signaling your parasympathetic nervous system to be like, oh, she's trying to slow down. Let's help her calm down. That's what that's doing. That's what all that breathing and box breathing and all of those things are for. It's not just, something to do. Listening to music, taking a nap. Just sometimes I don't have a chance to take a nap or meditate like I want to, but I'll just go somewhere quiet and just sit for 5 minutes. Just 5 minutes, just letting that brain just rest. And so I think those are some really good tools that can empower people. You want to empower yourself to be a great caregiver so that you can continue taking care of your loved one. You want to take better care of yourself so that you can take better care of your loved one. You want to take better care of yourself so that you don't lose yourself in this process of caregiving. You want to maintain your peace of mind. And so I think these are 4 good things that will start getting you there. There's a statistic that says that caregivers, I think it's like 70% of them they're starting to have their own illnesses from being a caregiver, just from the stress of it. And if they're a caregiver for someone with a mental illness, the percentage is even higher. So it's very serious that they get some help.
Wow, that was awesome. Small things can lead to big things, and what may seem like small problems can turn into big consequences if they are not handled. And I didn't know a lot of the strategies that you mentioned, and just so many facts. And you have already told us why it's so important to have candid conversations such as this, to educate ourselves, to empower ourselves, so that we don't continue to go down the same road that can sometimes lead to the same health challenges that have been faced by other people maybe in our family. Because even though certain diseases, they say, are inherited, it can be avoided if we take care of what looks like small things. So that's cool. If you could summarize your life purpose in one word, what would it be?
I would say compassion. Yeah, I would say compassion. The dictionary says that compassion is, I think it says it like it's a sympathetic consciousness of somebody else's distress, coupled with you wanting to help alleviate that distress. So it's a little bit different than sympathy and empathy, because I can sympathize with you and I can empathize with you. But when you have compassion, it makes me want to help you fix that. It makes me want to help you in whatever way that I can. And I think that totally describes me, because I'm I'm a helper. I love helping people. I have a passion for helping people. And it, like my mom said, I've been like that since I was a little kid. And so I think, and it was interesting. I didn't know this until I was probably like in my 40s or something. My name, Sandra, it actually means helper of mankind. And I didn't know that. And I was like, wow, like I'm living my name and I'm living my purpose. But yeah, that one word would be compassion.
Wow, that word definitely suits you. I don't know a lot about you personally, but from my talks with you, that word definitely suits you well. Do you have any upcoming projects that you are working on that you would like to share, or how can the listeners possibly connect with you or follow you on social media?
They can follow me. I am on Instagram at Caregivers Haven. I am on Facebook as Caregivers Haven. I'm on LinkedIn as Sandra Boyd. My website is caregivershaven.com. And as you can see on here, it's caregivers with an S, plural, Caregivers Haven. So that's how you can find me. So for your listeners, for the month of August and September, if you would like to get coaching with me, I will offer 10% discount. If you contact me, just make sure you say the code word Jayden. Yeah, say Jayden. Give me that code word, Jayden. And so I do consulting and coaching. My consulting is just helping people find education, resources, and support, finding the tools that they need to empower themselves. And I do one-to-one coaching for people who want to enhance their life, enhance their mental and physical well-being, whether you're a caregiver or just someone wanting to go to that next step. So again, just contact me on my website. You can book a free session. I do a 1-hour free consultation. And from there, we can decide if you want to continue, and then I'll give you that discount.
Wonderful, wonderful. Make sure you all go get that discount and book Miss Sandra Boyd to help you evolve and help you empower yourself so that you can continue to take care of others. And what is the website one more time?
Caregivershaven.com.
Yes, indeed. And the code is what?
Jayden.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Ms. Sandra, for hanging out with us today on the Preferable Podcast. And thank you for all of the wisdom that you have shared.
Yes, no problem. Thank you.
Please donate to the Preferable Podcast to keep it going, growing, and flourishing. You can donate to the Preferable Podcast through Cash App, $, I am Jayden Watkins. That is $, I am Jayden Watkins. Please make sure that you put in the subject line for podcast. Or you could go donate through PayPal at WJayden1 at WJayden1. Thank you for all of your donations to keep this podcast going. Thank you for tuning in to the Preferable Podcast, Season 3, Episode 23. Please make sure that you subscribe and turn on your notifications so that you will be notified when new episodes are released. I am Jayden Watkins, your host and executive producer, saying, I will and never stop making this world more preferable. God bless you.